System on. Approaching the secret shark base, connecting light tower. I want to wish you a good morning, and we have a couple of exciting topics for you today. This is Sharks and Coffee with Dr. Jaws. Welcome back to Sharks and Coffee with your host, Dr. Jaws. Episode 2, very excited to talk about the Dusky Smoothhound, Musculus canis. First, I want to do a shout out to Jess Myers. Jess is a freshman at Coastal Carolina University, and she's a friend, or actually she was a fan first before I met her. But she came by to visit, and we talked about Dr. Jaws a little bit, and she's been very supportive and very fascinated by sharks in the beginning, or since the beginning, and she's doing a lot of great work right now too. Like freshman year, she got into Coastal Carolina's kind of shark research program. She was like helping out on the boat, actually handling, Carolinian sharks. I think it's sandbar pups, because it's an estuary system. Really cool stuff. Really great work. She's just working really hard and just doing all the right things at the beginning. So well done, Jess. That's awesome. All right. So Dusky Smoothhound. I think we're going to start things off talking about a pet peeve of mine, and it applies to this shark. It's the name sand shark. Sand shark. I hate it. I hate that word. I hate sand shark because that does not exist. Sand shark is not a real shark. Sand shark is a colloquial term in the eastern United States for a lot of different sharks, and it ranges from, people get confused about it, it ranges from this species to sand tigers, to sandbar sharks, to maybe even sand devils, which is the type of angel shark we'll talk about next week. Or even any small shark, especially of like the Carcharinidae, that people catch and they don't know what it is, and they catch it near the beach, they'll call it a sand shark. I hate that. It's really annoying because it's not a real species. And my pet peeves aside, it's actually kind of important to figure out, or to correctly identify the species that you're handling. The Food and Agriculture Administration at the United Nations, they're very precise about the names they give things in order to kind of have a more accurate record of what shark stocks are doing well and which shark stocks are doing poorly. And in order to do that, they need, the local public, the fishing public needs to have basic awareness of what they're catching. They need to correctly identify and correctly name the species that they're handling. And like for recreational fishermen, it's not really that big of a deal, but then again, it kind of is when we're doing, surveys, or we're trying to figure out how often a certain species is caught. So when you say sand shark, it doesn't describe anything. You don't know if it's a sand tiger or a sandbar. And that's probably the most common confusion, or one of the most common confusions, and those are very, very different species. So, it's a term that drives me nuts. So, sand shark is not a real shark. Try to be a little bit more precise in terms of like what you're actually handling. And again, not a huge deal if you're kind of fishing for sharks for fun, but when it comes down to recording the populations, it's important because that helps proper management. That helps facilitate, or what's the word? I guess facilitate. It maximizes the efficiency of like taxpayer dollars going to fisheries programs. You gotta figure out or have as precise a data set as possible. So that's important. Moving on, this particular species today, Musculus canis, aside from being called a sand shark, it's colloquially, I can't say that word, colloquially, it's in the United States referred to as a smooth dogfish, but I believe the FAO name, the kind of like English, like international English name is Dusky Smoothhound. So I call it Dusky Smoothhound. That's kind of like the standard name. But in the United States, smooth dogfish, very, very popular. If you're in an aquarium in the United States, you'll probably see it as a smooth dogfish. And this is the eastern United States, particularly like Delaware Bay region, Chesapeake Bay region, New England. This species ranges from, I believe, Newfoundland to Florida. Just to be conservative, just a conservative estimate, let's just say Maine to Florida. In the United States, it's Maine to Florida. Maine to Florida, smooth dogfish. Anyway, but the Latin name, which I love Latin names, Musculus canis, it translates to dog weasel, which is kind of an odd name, isn't it? But dog, which is canis, that refers to the shark's habit of schooling in like large schools. Like they will get into large packs, if you will, like dog packs, and kind of chase something down. So and it might relate more to the piked dogfish, also known as the spiny dogfish, where spiny dogfish will kind of come in droves after fish caught in fishing nets or just schools of fish. And this species, the dusky smoothhound, it focuses more on shellfish. But it will still kind of have that like kind of pack mentality. It'll just come in like large groups, and so it's kind of like a schooling thing. It looks very similar to spiny dogfish to the kind of untrained eye. Like they're both small sharks. They both have these nice broad fins. They're kind of the comparable size. So yeah. So there's the dog part. Musculus is weasel. A lot of North American, or I guess no, never mind. Any kind of weasel, like otters or minks, and they're part of the family Musculidae. So it's a standard Latin word for weasel. These sharks are sometimes called, or there's a closely related branch of these sharks to dusky smoothhounds called weasel sharks. And I'm not exactly sure where the weaselly thing came from, but I dig it. Anyway, cool thing about this species is that it's one of the few sharks that changes color. Yeah, isn't that crazy? A color-changing shark, which I love that. I love that because it's in the realm of the fantastical. It sounds like whimsical. Nature is always surprising, isn't it? But yeah, this species, it doesn't do it instantaneously. If it's moving from an area of like light substrate, like a sandy bottom, into an area of dark substrate, its skin will darken in order to more properly blend in with that muddy substrate. The process of changing the skin color takes about 30 minutes to an hour for the species, but very, very handy for camouflage. It's a small shark and it gets eaten a lot, so it needs to do this in order to be okay. But yeah, it's an incredible process, and this might be taking it to a different realm. But it's interesting to think that, with the world's racial tension, racial issues, there's an animal out there that at will can change its skin color. That's amazing. I love it. I really love it. I mean, and I love it because it just kind of shows that it's absurd. It doesn't matter. It literally doesn't matter. This shark can be dark skin or light skin. Does not matter. It can be both. It's hilarious. It's an option. So. Oh, God. Anyway, another cool thing about this shark is the teeth. Dusky smoothhounds are small sharks, around, let's see, maybe like 6 inches, pops 5 feet maximum size, so around 4 pounds to 20 pounds, and I think I read 50 pounds somewhere. But these guys like shellfish, and in spite of their size, like their teeth are like pretty flat. Actually, no, they're flat. So there's no spikes, there's no points. They're flat for crushing shellfish. For the smaller guys, the 4-pound ones I mentioned earlier, I'm not going to endorse this, but people have been known to stick their finger in their mouths, and the shark will kind of gum you, and that's kind of like a cool little party trick if you want to do that. I don't know, bring the shark to a cocktail party and be like, look at this is the shark. The sharks are dangerous, right? Wrong. I'm going to stick my finger in the mouth and I will be okay. It will not be removed. I mean, it's ridiculous. So yeah, you can do that. I'm not going to endorse that because you're probably annoying the animal. Don't do that. But at the same time, it's kind of a cool trick, and I'm not going to endorse it. I'm not gonna endorse it. But it's cool. It's cool. It's cool. It will gum you. Don't do it. Don't do it with the larger ones, because remember, like, you know, these teeth are designed to crush, to break crab shells and, you know, like clam shells, and you know, it's just, I would not trust it. You know, I would not try that trick on a larger individual. But the little guys, you know, who are just like itty bitty, yeah, maybe, you know, you might be safe. Man, I feel like I breezed through that. It's 9 minutes, but 9 minutes went by. I mean, it's just, this is like a beautiful shark. It's a cute little guy. It's very populous, kind of near where I'm launching this podcast, and sometimes they'll wash up on the beach. I've yet to see one alive in the wild, which is really sad because they're very common here. But they're really, really, really cool, and they have these gorgeous eyes. Like they're the family of sharks that this one is, or this one belongs to, Triachidae. It's I love their eyes. I love the eyes. They're these like kind of Roman fresco eyes. They're just these beautiful like elliptical. You just like look up pictures of either this shark or the leopard shark. Leopard shark is a very beautiful species, which we unfortunately do not have on the East Coast. It is in the West Coast. It was one of my favorite sharks as a kid. Leopard sharks are just beautiful. But yeah, I mean the smoothhounds, Triachidae, it's their eyes are absolutely gorgeous. They're completely captivating. You can kind of get lost in those eyes. So beautiful shark. Please look it up. So moving on to our second topic is accessibility in science. I'm having Taco Bell coffee today because it's a lazy day. Not to knock Taco Bell, because it's one of my favorite places. But anyway, so science is a very weird field in the sense that it's very polarizing. There's a lot of people who really love it in school, and there's significantly a larger population who hate it, who cannot stand it, and understandably so, because it's very dry. It's very complex and it's very dry. And it's interesting. It's interesting to compare biology, chemistry, physics, and I'm talking about like your standard high school biology, chemistry, and physics, and maybe like your undergraduate in college, to things that are as complex but completely useless, such as video game mechanics. A lot of people obsess over Elder Scrolls or Pokemon and how they work, and like, you know, all the stats that go into it, which is crazy. Or well, actually, it's not crazy. I do that. Or movies or film, you know, like completely, and I totally get it. I love it. But analyzing like a Kubrick film, a Christopher Nolan film, like the many layers of plot, the production costs, the hours spent, the technique, everything. Like these fields are more appealing. They're the fields of art. You know, art kind of summons a special place in a lot of us, and you know, they can be like the production in like a professional movie, or the intricacies, the statistical intricacies of a video game, especially like a very developed RPG. You know, they're really as complex, maybe even a little bit more than some of the basic science. You know, and again, I'm talking about like high school level. You know, like atoms, cells, ecology, basic tenets of that. You know, global warming. They're not that hard. They're tricky to understand. They're on that level of complexity. They're not like a deeper level of complexity when we're doing the basic level. You know, but it's weird because a lot of kids don't like it. A lot of kids hate it. It's annoying. It's because it's dry. You know, science is kind of, the teaching of science, unfortunately, for the most part, is kind of devoid of the art, you know, or the how it kind of ties into broader, like, emotional concepts. And it's weird because, like, they're not, I'm not trying to polarize them, they're not different. Like, science is on the same spectrum as art. Science is really, like, nature is really kind of the ultimate form of art, honestly. You know, the intricacies of nature, how, like, the technique of nature, like, what nature has created. You know, every living organism is, like, its own masterpiece. It's its own painting. You know, the colors, the movement, the form, they're gorgeous. And understanding those through science, and through, like, what's the lenses that science reveals, is very, very beautiful and very, very important. But it's interesting because, again, I think we all know the kid who just hates the biology class or hates the chemistry class or hates the physics class. And it begs the question, why? Like, why do you hate that as opposed to something like silly, like something fun, something entertaining? Like, why do you hate that as opposed to entertainment? Like, what is the quality of entertainment that distinguishes itself from, like, a knowledge that's applicable to the world? Like, I can know, like, I always think, like, I can name, like, all 150 Pokemon, and I can't name, or the originals, and I can't name, 150, like, bird species, or I can't name 150, like, terrestrial chordates. I could probably do at least 100 sharks, but, but why, I mean, like, why is one thing more engaging than the other, when the other is more applicable to the real world? And I guess that's kind of a cool question to think about in terms of the details. Please answer that question for me, because I'm not saying it as in, like, I don't know it. I'm saying it as, like, just think about it. It's kind of cool to think about. Another thing about science that's kind of interesting is that what we think of science in popular culture, or what's been successful in translating science, or some aspects of science, is kind of not that related to the scientific process. So what I mean by that is, if you're a 90s kid or early 2000s kid, you grew up with, like, Steve Irwin, the Kratt brothers, Jeff Corwin, beautiful, wonderful ambassadors of wildlife, and ambassadors of conservation. And conservation is a branch of science, but they're not like they are, and they are trained. They are scientifically trained, but they're not really like scientists. They kind of are, but they really are not like researchers, like paper producers. They're entertainers, and my favorite word is ambassadors. Because these are not people to like belittle. These are people to look up to. They have reached a broader audience, and they've reached that audience in a way that proper, like, quotation marks, proper science or formal science, like institutionalized science, kind of doesn't, which is very interesting. And in that sense, I just kind of like to ask the question, is science inaccessible to the layperson, to the public, to the general public? Is it, it is very complex, so, you kind of need an intelligent mind to go after it. But, when you're trying to communicate very important issues or principles, such as, well, back in the day, gravity, and then now global warming, or ecological stewardship or conservation, and why that actually relates to the economy, or why that relates to your personal taxpayer interest. It's many, many layers of complex, but it's kind of interesting that, like, it's hard to kind of dig in. It's hard to kind of get interested in it. It's hard to kind of get involved or excited about science, which is an exciting field. Science is the reason we can go to space. Science is the reason we can go near volcanoes. Science is the reason that we've developed submarines to go to the bottom of the Mariana Trench. That's exciting. That's exciting stuff. And it's just why are people kind of closed off to it? And I think it is a mix of it's challenging, but like the field itself is challenging, but in terms of like teaching it, in terms of conveying it, the people who successfully do that and get people excited about it and relate it to broader concepts or relate it to our personal humanity as lay people, they're very, very rare. Cool examples would probably be like Neil deGrasse Tyson or Bill Nye. Because they are definitely a little bit more involved considerably much more entrenched in sciences than probably maybe like our wildlife ambassadors, but still they can reach a broader audience, and also still they are not really. I mean, I'm gonna stop myself right there. I don't want to say anything strange, but like they're definitely involved in the institution, but the institution is much more developed, than these two people. If that makes any sense, like the institution is a lot more complex, and it's a lot more. And what I mean by the institution is kind of like the academic realms of science, the science foundations, the colleges, the professors, the research, the very important research, the volumes of research that we produce. Those are for people who really work their butt off and kind of lock themselves away. to produce this body of knowledge, which is really fantastic. Like, the production of it is fantastic, but I think what I'm kind of curious about is the translation of it to a broader audience, into like a compressible, accessible format. I feel like it's kind of, there's been a lot of occasions where I just kind of feel like it's lacking a little bit, which is why I do what I do. It's why I like Dr. Jaws, or the idea of Dr. Jaws. The whole point of it is to kind of, be another compressor guy, kind of be like a bridge, because I'm not a, I dabbled in science, but I'm not a, full-fledged scientist. And, likewise, I'm dabbling in entertainment, but I'm not, just like an entertaining guy. I'm kind of like the guy between both worlds in a way. And the point being that these concepts that science brings, that wildlife biology brings, that sharks are that are revealed by science, such as like the color changing ability. It's a beautiful ability. Why don't we talk about that ability? Why don't we talk about this color changing shark? It's in our backyard. It's in the Chesapeake Bay. It's literally like 100 miles from Washington D.C. And I guarantee you not many people know about the beautiful color changing shark that is Musculus canis, the Dusky Smoothhound. I don't think most people know about Dusky Smoothhounds. And it's interesting why, because that's cool, that's amazing, and that's very beautiful, it's very poignant, especially in our 2014, 2015, like recent racial dispute, like again the color changing shark. You can tie that to a lot of things. Make a play, I mean, okay, I'm getting a little ridiculous, but like, do you know what I'm saying though? Like, do you understand what I'm talking about? The idea that this is kind of a beautiful, like, we can talk about scientifically how it changes color, like chromatophores, and the period of time it does, and that's really, really important. But why don't we talk about like the ability, and maybe like why can't we connect the ability to like kind of beautiful other concepts, like just the tangent, like the I mean, it's a very touching example of everything is kind of transient. Nature is transient. Everything changes. Nothing is status quo. Everything is just a development of everything else, and it's just, it kind of is a beautiful example of like kind of what's the point? Why get so caught up in skin color when something as small as this little shark, it just doesn't care. So yeah, I'm harping on this point a lot. I just think it's a very interesting point. But please let me know what you think. Because that's all the time I got today. This is so fun. I love doing this little podcast, and I don't realize how much time I'm taking. And I'm sorry if I'm talking a little too fast. It's a lot of fun. Also, I've got coffee. But thank you so much for listening. This has been great. And again, Dusky Smoothhound has been one of my favorite sharks to talk about. This has been a lot of fun. But next week we're going to talk about the sand devil, which is a real shark. I mentioned it earlier. It's a type of angel shark. But isn't that a killer name? Sand devil? I love it. I love it. And we're also going to talk about Megalodon. Yeah. Anyway, hope you have a wonderful day and a wonderful morning. Although I do encourage, please listen to this at night. I think it's kind of more like, I don't know. I feel like with the underwater effects, it's kind of like I'm actually underwater, of course. It's a good thing to fall asleep to. Anyway, take care. Adios. System off.